Machiavelli understood something most people spend their whole lives avoiding, that the world rewards calculation, not goodness. You already feel it. Sometimes you may go. The people who get ahead aren't always the most talented or the most honest. They're the ones who understand the game underneath the game. That's not an accident, and it's not unfair. It's a system, and right now you're losing inside it because nobody taught you the rules. Here's what's actually backwards. You've been told that being open, being agreeable, being predictable is what builds trust. It does the opposite. It hands your leverage to everyone around you for free. By the end of this video, you'll know the 8 calculated traits that separate the people who get strategically used from the people who never get played again. And the first one alone will change how you walk into every room for the rest of your life. Strategic thinkers don't operate on hope, they operate on positioning. And the 8 traits ahead are the blueprint underneath every alliance that's ever lasted and every one that's ever collapsed. Machiavelli's entire philosophy rests on one observation that most people refuse to accept, that perception is the actual battlefield, not truth. The moment you understand that, every interaction you have shifts shape. Trait 1. Calculated opacity. You do not explain yourself fully, ever. Most people think transparency builds connection, but full transparency just hands away your position before the conversation even starts. When someone asks what you're planning this weekend, the untrained response is a complete itinerary. The calculated response is handling something, followed by a subject change. Notice what happens. The room recalibrates around the gap you left, not the information you gave. That gap is where your influence lives. Trait 2. Adaptive presentation. You are not the same version of yourself in every room, and pretending you should be is what keeps people predictable and powerless. This isn't dishonesty, it's calibration. You already adjust your tone with a parent versus a stranger. This trait just makes that instinct deliberate. Read what the room values before you decide which version of your position to show it. Diamonds have many faces and remain one stone. End of 10 days. And so do you. Now here's the part most people skip, and it's the part that actually separates the observers from the observed. Strategic distance isn't coldness, it's architecture. The 8 traits in this video work because they share one hidden mechanic. They all remove your dependency on other people's approval before you ever walk into the room. Once that dependency is gone, everything downstream gets easier. Trait 3. Detachment from outcome. The alliance you are not afraid to lose can never be used to control you. Picture 2 people in a negotiation. One needs the deal. One would simply prefer it. The one who can walk away holds the room, every time, without raising their voice. This is not indifference. You're still invested in the outcome you want. You simply refuse to be desperate for it. Desperation is the most expensive thing you can broadcast. What's coming next is the trait almost nobody talks about, because admitting you use it feels uncomfortable. But the discomfort is exactly why it works. Trait 4. Silent leverage. Influence that announces itself stops being influence. The amateur demands respect. The strategist becomes indispensable until respect is handed over without being asked for. In conversation, this looks like comfort with silence, letting a pause stretch instead of rushing to fill it, because the person who fills the silence usually reveals their position first. You are not performing power. You're positioning yourself so the room arrives at it on its own. Trait 5. Reflected understanding. People do not trust the person who talks the most. They trust the person who reflects back what they actually mean underneath what they said. When someone says, "I hate this," they are rarely talking about the surface complaint. They're naming a deeper feeling, overlooked, undervalued, stuck. Strategic listeners respond to that underneath layer, and the connection that creates is almost impossible to manufacture any other way. Trait 6. Moral elasticity. You are not required to be predictable in your judgments to remain principled in your values. Real situations are not black and white, and pretending they are is how good people get strategically exploited by people who understand nuance better than they do. This isn't an excuse to abandon your standards. It's a refusal to let rigid rules be used against you by people who have none. 6 traits in, and here's the unresolved question worth sitting with. Which one of these are you already doing without realizing it? And which one have you been actively punished for not doing? Trait 7. Controlled exposure. Every piece of information you give away can never be taken back. The strategist treats personal disclosure like currency, not confession. This does not mean secrecy, it means timing. Sharing a strength early reads as bragging. Sharing the same strength later, when it solves someone's problem, reads as quiet competence. The information hasn't changed, the position has. Trait 8. Outcome obsession. The final trait, and the one that makes the other 7 matter. Most people are loyal to their methods. Strategists are loyal only to their results. If the plan isn't working, you change the plan, not your goal. This single shift, caring about the outcome more than being right about the process, is what separates the people who adapt and survive from the people who stay correct and irrelevant. Here's the realization underneath all 8 of these. None of this was ever about becoming colder. It was about becoming impossible to read until you've decided what someone deserves to see. The people who seem the most powerful in any room are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who understood these 8 traits long before anyone else in the room knew there was a game being played at all. You don't need to become a different person to use this. You need to stop handing away the position you already have. If you recognized even one of these traits in yourself, that recognition is the beginning, not the end. If you want to go deeper into the trait that controls everything else on this list, watch why the quietest person is always the most dangerous next, because silence is where every one of these 8 traits actually gets tested in real time. Take care of yourself.